welcome back. So this is what I've been working on the past week. It's called the Cream Machine, and it's basically a mystery box type of thing where you insert a currency, and then you can spend your coin, and it'll go through this whole sequence that happens on the server, and it'll spit out probably a random item or a random weapon or power up. I'm not entirely sure yet. And this has been my project for the past week. It's definitely been a journey. I didn't really know I had no idea where to start exactly. And I'm gonna go kind of into a little bit of detail of just what the sequences are that make up something like this, especially when it comes to multiplayer, because this would be something that would be really easy to exploit in a multiplayer setting if things weren't kind of handled properly. So I took a lot of time doing research and kind of seeing, you know, finding, just Googling stuff when I was hitting a wall, and just making sure that everything that should be happening on the server is happening on the server. And of course I have all these little pickups, and there's a little print string at the on the viewport when I pick it up, just letting me know that my player state, which is tied to the player, and it's replicated. It's on the server, and it's replicated to other, or it's on the server rather. It updates that, and of course you can keep spending. And if you try to insert them during the process, it'll just say spin in progress. At the top left, and then it'll go spin in progress, and then when you get to 0, it'll just say you don't have any coins. So yeah, this is I'm excited to show this off. It's been a fun time doing this, and I'm just gonna I'm just gonna go into a little bit of detail of how this works, and sort of, I don't know, I guess what I've learned doing this. So this is the blueprint for I call it a slot machine in the files. I didn't really come up with the name Cream Machine yet, so this was this is better, and that's actually a common thing with some of my file names. So I try to start with naming it the most generic thing possible. But anyway, this is the sort of an overview of all of the code that goes into the slot machine, and it's basically in order from top to bottom. And this is after quite a few different iterations, trying different things. And I at one point about the middle of this week, I had just an insanely overly complicated and set of methods that, even looking back at it now, it just seems silly, because it really is much simpler than I thought it would be. But it took a minute to get there. So the first sequence that you have to really consider, or that the slot machine has to consider, is the overlap. And that's when the slot machine actually overlaps with the player. And the overlap occurs on this little collision box right here. It's a little orange. It's a little faint, but it's this little orange thing right here. And the reason why that overlap is so small is because the player can't actually do anything to the server. And this is an event that takes place on the server. So what happens is the reason why that box is so small is because once the player overlaps that box, it sets the owner as that player's controller. and enables an input pretty much like, instantly. And the reason why that owner is set is so that someone else can't come in and just like, uh, it just doesn't conflict with what that player is going to do with the machine. So the overlap occurs. The owner is set to the actor who's overlapping, and their input is enabled. Not any other player, just their input. And then it goes into the switch has authority node, which basically just means, this is the server's authority, and this is the remote, client machine action. And these two events are basically tied to right here. So on the remote calls the authority, and then the authority executes. And that basically, it's kind of confusing, but basically it just means that when the player interacts with this machine, whatever happens, whatever this machine does, it occurs on the server. And this begins the start. I call it the server start machine. I don't know. It's the best name I could come up with, and that goes through and it asks a few questions. It says, does the player have any coins? And that comes from the player state, and then it says, is this machine accepting coins? And also it asks, does it need coins? And I know those pretty much sound like the same thing, but they're not. But without getting stuck in the weeds on that, basically it just means like, is this machine already in progress of spitting out a prize? If so, don't let anyone put more coins into it. Does it and the needs coins, I honestly don't even know. I don't even remember what it was, but I know it's necessary because I would have cut it if it wasn't. So if all those conditions are true, they have the coin and blah blah blah, it goes over here and it starts to play an animation, which is the first animation it plays is the insert coin sequence, which basically is the action of the coin falling into this slot. So when I press E, it goes whoop. So you can see there's a few things that are happening. The coin goes in, the lever goes down, lights start going brighter, changing colors. So that's the coin sequence, and that delay is of course the delay of the coin entering the machine, and then it starts the use slot machine and light flicker events, which are basically down here, use slot machine and light flicker, and these are just cosmetic. These really are just cosmetic things that occur that make interacting with it seem interesting and cool. And this is the light flicker. The light flicker, I think could use some work. I probably just using a bit too much repetition here. I definitely did not find a way to make this more. I don't know how to put it. I just feel like it could be tightened up a little bit. And then at the very end, there's this random item sequence, which is something that's still a work in progress. I don't really. It actually does cycle through a loop and end on a number. I have gotten that far, but I haven't been able. I haven't spent a lot of time, and I haven't learned how to tie that number into an item, and I'm just not exactly sure how I'm going to approach this. And the only reason I haven't is just really time. I kind of got stuck on some things around, I think, Thursday or Friday, and I spent several days trying to fix one thing, and it basically had to do with the network authority, just having issues of using the machine and having it display on only the client or only the server or all the clients and not the server. It was just madness for a second. But I finally figured it out, and it basically was it basically came down to my understanding of starting an event like this that's caused by the player and the owner being the player. For some reason, Unreal Engine, I don't know if this is like unique to Unreal Engine, but if the player tries to initiate something on the server, it won't. I don't know if this is like the right way to put it, but it won't. It basically won't work unless the player owns the actor that's being like affected. Um, which is why I set the owner here when on the overlap. And it's also a way. The reason why that collision box is so small also is so that people can't just like come up and steal the prompt and kind of like troll other players. I imagine people. I mean, I already kind of played around a little bit, and I found out that if I jump up here and I crouch down, then I can steal it. I can steal the ownership. So if I do that, let me see here. Let me see if I can press. Oh, I guess I can't. I get the prompt, but I can't actually do anything. So I don't have ownership. Oh, that's really odd. It's funny, like this the client's coins is adding to the widget of the server when they overlap. So that's something that I'll have to address. And if I mean worst case scenario, I guess I'll just make a collision up here so that people can't step up on the machine and mess with other people. But that just goes to show how much thought and preparation and reworking has to go into doing stuff like this, because it's like, what? People find a way to, if they want to find a way to just ruin your experience, they will. Whoop. I shot one of the players and then brought up a familiar error. So yeah, this has been a very fun project. It's the art, and on the asset and the texture is something I really race through. There's not a lot of love and care put into that. And again, that's really just due to time, but I consider this to be kind of an important prop in the game, and I expect to put a lot more time on it, or time into it. For example, these lights, I'd like to have a little bit more of a dynamic quality, especially during the slot machine, use. The random cycling or whatever. I don't even remember what I called it, but when people use the machine, and of course these lights up here and the textures in general, I like to kind of have a more real arcade machine or type of vibe. Yeah, so these of course are the widgets that I've been using, and I've definitely got a lot to learn about this whole widget and UI scaling type stuff. This is still so foreign to me, but yeah. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to address. I mean, one thing that's been a big theme for the past few weeks is learning about network authority, and it's I think it's pretty interesting. It is very challenging, and I kind of see why that in games, a lot of times when a game would come out single player as opposed to multiplayer, you would sort of note, at least when I was a kid and growing up, I'd notice like how fewer things were actually being implemented in multiplayer. It seemed like more sparse, and really that makes a lot more sense to me now, for a lot of reasons. Because I mean, there's a lot of performance uh, things that come into to play with multiplayer, and just making an asset like this and having it display appropriately to all the clients at the right times, and to handle these important game events on the server is it's quite a challenge. I think I imagine it's I mean it's a challenge. I think even knowing a lot going into it, um, because it's like one of those things where you know you just don't ex- you can't really plan for certain things, because there's so many moving pieces that uh, you're just constantly surprised about what the game does, and it's just, you just kind of have to like throw your hands up and be like, okay, I guess this is what's going wrong now. Um, and it's funny, like I had kind of a result that I liked early on, that but it didn't have a I wasn't able to actually access the machine like this through a user input. It was working pretty much as intended fairly early on, like Tuesday or Wednesday, just by an overlap. But I just felt like that wasn't like good enough. I didn't like just overlapping it and then having it subtract a coin from my inventory or something like that. It just didn't seem as fun. So I fought for this interact system, and I paid the price, but it's been worth it, because I think it's just going to be so much more exciting as a player, just to like approach this and spend your hard-earned coins, and have a chance to get something really cool. And I've said from the beginning that I wanted to create kind of like a Risk of Rain to mix with zombies, and that's still, or that is still my intention, and to have kind of like Binding of Isaac, Risk of Rain, like modular type of weapons. I want people to be able to kind of have a build, and be able to experiment with different things, and have kind of a mixture of randomness and strategy. And I'm gonna try to look for as many opportunities to accomplish that. But so far, of course, a lot of my time is spent just making sure that things are implemented pretty well. And I'm gonna have some sort of, I think, player inventory system where whatever this machine actually generates, it's I automatically put into the player's inventory, and somehow maybe displayed in this inside this glass casing. So like when the lever's pulled and something appears, and it kind of cycles through, and it's sort of like lights flashing. It's very just um, it's very much a slot machine. Um, and of course, like I feel like without having sounds, it really feels like something is missing. Like I can't wait to have some cool, jingles and whatnot. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna how I'm gonna approach that. Or for a lot of the, I'm not sure how I'm gonna approach a lot of the sound in this game, to be honest. But I am excited to get some cool, just very satisfying jingles and jangles and cranking and into this game because I think it would be so cool. Be so cool. But yeah, the week before this, it was all spent trying to get all of these guns to spawn on the characters, and to have them be able to fire. And that's all working great. Of course, the muzzle flash is not working as intended. You can see it's actually spawns at, I don't know if you can see it, but well, it's appearing on this one anyway. There's a little flash on the ground. It's basically world 000, because that effect, or that hidden weapon or whatever isn't attaching to the mesh. I'm not exactly sure why, but I was just so exhausted after combing through all of the Valorant, or excuse me, the shooter game code last week, that I needed I just really needed a break and to move on to something else for a second. But I'm confident I'll be able to get that all fixed up and all my gun animations that I've already done, because I miss being able to shoot and have that, the chamber, cock back or whatever, and have the smoke come out of the muzzle. I really want to see that again. And I also really want to reapproach some of these textures and just, eventually, because I am getting sick of seeing some of this. I don't, this one I don't like very much. These ones I think could use some love and care too. Oh, and I got this little barrel. I don't know if it's replicating to everyone, but let's find out. Nope. Just me, I guess. But yeah, this is sort of a last minute thing, but this will be easy to implement. And I might actually do that. I might actually do that barrel in C++. Who knows? I did this one in Blueprints because there's no way I feel confident enough to do something like this in C++. But eventually, I might migrate it into it, depending. Just for good practice. I mean, a lot of my understanding is that C++ is really good for handling a lot of things that happen a lot on the in the game. That's like kind of the one of the best parts about it, for performance reasons. And of course, who could forget about these zombies who've got very strange hands right now, which is bugs the crap out of me. But I'm gonna be looking at them, and figuring out how are they gonna attack me. How are they gonna drop loot? Do I want them to share the same skeleton as the player? Because that's, I think, what's causing this hand issue, is because of the player's skeleton at the moment, which is an issue. But yep, I'm gonna definitely revisit this and just get down and dirty with this whole zombie business. And that'll be super exciting to, I think, when finally I have I'm at a stage in the development of this where it's just there is a clear um, just quality to the game, playing the game. You know, there's an objective, and you know, it's to stay alive, and there's a few extra mechanics that make it, you know, fun. And I think that'll be, I am excited to reach that point when things are working pretty well. But yeah, these zombies definitely need some love. Definitely need some love. And of course my characters, cosmetic things like I would like clothing and accessories to be uh, modular and uh, able to be added to the character during runtime, so that, you know, people can see their character change based on certain conditions. You know, maybe they're wearing a belt, or maybe they've got I don't know, yacht, you name it. You know what? I want to have a system where they can that's performant, where they can wear something, you know, based off of an item they get or whatever. And I haven't forgotten about character classes either. I know that's been my intention, and it still is. But I need I feel like I need to really just lock down this sort of main starting character first before I start to approach that more. Think about different types of abilities, you know, or making a healer. Or I thought maybe making like a Torbjorn type of class, you know, someone who can drop turrets, or an engineer from Risk of Rain 2. And decals, I've been I spent a little bit of time sort of designing a blueprint for decals, which is, you know, just pretty rudimentary, but just a way for where I can display stuff on walls and kind of just break up any, you know, uh, you know, textures that are feeling like they're repeating too much or whatever. And I'm just sort of adjusting the world to my liking. This is another example of one of those decals here. You know, it's just a cool way to make the world feel a little bit more alive by creating this grime and stuff. I'll show it to you what it looks like in game. You know. And of course, these bullet hole decals, I'd like to do some stuff to also, like, maybe find a way to rotate them, you know, so it's not displaying the same image all the time. So I'm gonna be looking into that eventually too. And sound, I don't believe there's any sound on this video, and you're not missing much. But there's a kind of like there's some cool stuff that happens when you shoot something. There's like that there's impact effects. So when, you know, something like a cardboard box gets fired, it has like kind of a papery effect. Or when skin or flesh is hit, it's got a different effect. And this is sort of like a concrete impact, and then there's a metal sound. Which is really just a part of my whole, part of my goal of making the game just feel kind of like it reacts to the things you do in a way that's really interesting. And yeah, I'm just learning as I go. Of course, and we've all got this visible breath coming out of the screen. I don't know if that's going to be, I don't know if that's going to stay in the game, but I kind of like it. Maybe it'll just be an event-based thing where if, on a certain wave or when a certain zombie appears, then, maybe it gets colder or something. I'm not sure. Oh, and also the destructible barriers here, they're going to need some work too. In fact, let's just open up this blueprint because I haven't looked at this in a minute. Yeah, so it just has like a few things. It handles damage. Which is great, and then it's got a little widget so that I can see how much health it has, which is good for debug purposes. And then, yeah, of course, the way it receives damage right now is just ridiculous. It just starts to damage itself over time when it overlaps with the zombie. So it's very, very bare bones. So I'm gonna have to try to figure out how zombies can chase, individual players on the server, like the closest player, for example. And if there's no clear path to the player, then to, target these barriers, and try to figure out, well, when should they be attacking? If there is a path to the player and they're attacking a barrier and they're damaged by a player, should they stop damaging the barrier and go to the clear path, or should they continue attacking the barrier that's closest to the player? I mean, there's like a lot of things to consider, and I'm sure I'll be banging my head against the wall on that problem for a minute. But yeah, so that's the cream machine. And this week I think I'll I'm not sure exactly where this week will take me. I imagine I would like something to just pop out of this thing. It would just be very, very satisfying if something would just come out of here and do something to the player. So I think that's what I'll probably do, and I think I'm gonna dive back into C++ in the shooter game and figure out how I can bring my handgun back up to speed. And that's mostly it. I guess the last thing I'll say is that I'd like to have the rat logo, from the rat cream factory logo. So I'm working on an illustration for that, and I think I might show something off next week. And if you're watching this, you're like, what? Rat cream logo? What are you talking about? Well, that's kind of like the idea that I had early on, which is this all takes place in a rat cream factory / casino. It's kind of like a dystopian Chuck E. Cheese type of situation, and it doesn't make sense. I know it's not supposed to. It doesn't really matter. I think if the game's fun, like no one really cares. But I think it's just more of a it's just something that I want to see in a game. So yeah, have a great week. Drink lots of water, and I'll see you next Sunday. Toodaloo. Love you.